The LA Clippers had a really good start to their 2024. And I was at the game, so I had a really good start to my 2024. You know the best part? Kawhi Leonard was back. Kawhi Leonard was back and looked like he hadn't really missed a game. 24 points in his return against the Miami Heat on New Year's Day. It was a shorthanded Miami Heat team, but you got 20 plus points from both Kawhi and Paul George and a little bit of Norm Powell, Russ, and James Harden for you. Let's talk about another Clipper win. That's 3 straight on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in LA and in my 19th season as a Clipper fan. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod and subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, where a video of what was another sellout game, 6 in a row at the Staples Center. You can check out what fans were saying during the game, after the game. A lot of people I saw at this one, and I just had a great time. Clippers move on to 14-4 at home this season. In our last season at the Staples Center, or Crypto.com Arena, whatever you call it, 121-104 win over a very good team, but a short-handed team in the Miami Heat. They were without the great Jimmy Butler and without Haywood Highsmith, two guys that have started consistently for the Miami Heat this season. Of course, Jimmy Butler, we obviously know, the franchise player. But Haywood Highsmith has started 15 games this season. He's been a guy. And also no Caleb Martin, who was absolutely huge in their quest to win the East last year. And before we get started with this episode, it is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best daily fantasy sports platform in North America, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you got to do is go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. But yeah, Clippers winning it 121-104 over the shorthanded Miami Heat. And the great news that we got on Monday afternoon, Kawhi Leonard would return after an 11-day and 4-game absence with the hip contusion, which he apparently sustained in the Utah game. That was surprising to me when I heard that. The Utah game in which he scored 41 points. That was his highest scoring game of the season so far. And then apparently he re-aggravated it on that fall against the Dallas Mavericks. But in this game, it took him a little while to get going. He had a 0-point first quarter, but he got going as the game went on. And by the fourth quarter, this guy got by Bam Adebayo on the baseline and threw down a reversed one-hander. And I mean, obviously I'm standing up the whole game in section 207, but I jumped. I literally jumped. You know, I can't jump out of my seat because I was already out of my seat, but I straight up jumped. I was like, oh my God, he's moving like that. It's like he didn't even miss a game. But yeah, he had 0 points in the first quarter. Second quarter is when he started taking over, and that was a big reason why the Clippers ended up taking the lead. He had 13 points in the second quarter and was 5 for 6. And mind you, the Clippers were down by 12 after 1 and trailed by as many as 14 in the first half of the game. But weirdly, I didn't feel nervous. I felt as though we were always going to come back. The crowd would push them back in it because our shot making is good enough so that you just make a couple of shots, you get the crowd back going, the defense sharpens up. They didn't have Jimmy Butler, Caleb Martin. I knew they'd cool down. And Tyler Herro, I mean, he didn't have a good shooting game. He did from 3, actually, 4 for 8 from 3, but he was 0 for 5 from 2 to finish 4 for 13 from the field. And we were conceding the Bam Adebayo jump shot, which it seems like he has improved this season, but until he shows that he can really make that at a knockdown level, at a cash money level, teams are going to concede that in the pick and roll and drop coverage. And I thought Zoo did a great job of staying disciplined in this game, not closing out on him too hard, not falling for the pump fakes, which he still did at times. But throughout the game, I thought he was really solid. And Bam got a lot of generous calls in this game, as the Heat did in the first quarter when they were up 35-23 after one. A lot of favorable calls, in my opinion. But Bam, he finished with 21 points and 15 boards, but he was 6 for 17 from the field. So Zubats, I think, is a huge part of that. Jamal Cain, 4 for 12. He wasn't really scaring us. Duncan Robinson and Kevin Love got off to a great start in this one. And that was part of the reason why the Heat went up. But again, I don't think our defense was too bad. Miami plays a pretty creative offense. They have a lot more movement than most teams in the Eastern Conference, and they use Duncan Robinson and Tyler Herro in those ways, and they're all super intelligent, and they just find a way to maximize every single player they have. And Duncan Robinson was causing problems, coming off screens, and he was being fouled. And this season, if you've been watching Miami Heat games, he's shown more of an ability to actually put the ball on the floor and attack those closeouts. You saw a little glimpse of that in later rounds of the playoffs last year. I'm pretty sure in the game that they won, game 2 against Denver, if I recall correctly, he was pretty good in that game. And I saw him attacking those closeouts, and he was pretty effective. Now, in this game, Terrence Mann started out on Kyle Lowry, who got off to a really good start. He had 8 points in the game, though, and if I'm not mistaken, all 8 of those points came in the first quarter. Okay, 6 of the 8 points came in the first quarter. So Terrence Mann on Lowry, thought he was pretty solid at the point of attack. Kawhi on Jaquez, but he was switching off with Harden at times. Zoo on Bam, PG guarding Herro. At times, Kawhi would guard Herro. And, of course, the Clippers were switching 1 through 4 for basically the entire game, which in the beginning of the third quarter actually ended up being a tad problematic because the Heat went with Bam at the 5 and then Kevin Love at the 4, who's a traditional 4. He was one of the best power forwards in the league 10 years ago when the league had more traditional power forwards with size. And then they had Jaquez at the 3. And by the way, so much UCLA representation in this game. Norman Powell, who was awesome at UCLA, the best player on the 2014-15 Bruins team that went to the Sweet 16, no doubt about it, and a fantastic piece of the 2014 Bruins team that won the Pac-12 championship with Kyle Anderson and Jordan Adams. And then Russell Westbrook and Kevin Love, who were on that same 2008 Bruins team that lost in the Final Four to Memphis and Derrick Rose. That was awesome, and they were guarding each other at times. I thought that was so sick to see. My sister went to UCLA, my dad went there, so definitely was cool to see that. And then, of course, Jaime Jaquez, and it was Mexican Heritage Night at Crypto.com Arena tonight, or on Monday night. Of course, I'm recording this right after the game. And there was a loud reception for Jaime when he got introduced. And let me tell you something, Clipper fans in my section were doing it, including me. We were giving him a hand. I mean, the guy's a UCLA legend, 4-year player, absolutely one of the favorites to win Rookie of the Year right now. And he had a pretty good game, 6 for 13 from the field, 0 for 3 from deep, though. But the Heat overall, though, 42% from the field, 32% from 3, 79% from the line. And let me tell you, they shot 15 more free throws than the Clippers and shot 3 more shots than them. And they still lost by 17. I mean, that's terrible. That's terrible. How is that even possible? We only out-rebounded them by 2. That's crazy. We shot less shots and 15 less free throws. And the turnover disparity, we turned the ball over more. Let me tell you, the Clippers shot 59% from the field and 48% from 3. And of the 14 free throws that we shot, we made 13 of them. So the Clippers continue to shoot really, really solid from the foul line in the last couple of weeks since they've been on this 17 wins out of 22 games run. Let me repeat that again, because we're on a 3-game winning streak. And we've won 12 of the last 14. But how about 17 of the last 22? That sounds pretty good as well. We are 20-12 on the season, trending in the right direction. When you have Kawhi Leonard, who had 24 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 steals, and a block, 4 steals, on 10 for 19 shooting and 2 for 5 from 3. Funny enough, he was the one guy who missed the free throw. I actually, that's hilarious. I don't even remember him missing the free throw. Actually, I do, but I have to think about it. A very efficient game for Kawhi. He sat out the last 5 minutes, and we were pretty comfortable. We still won the fourth quarter, 26-19. We won every quarter but the first. Won the second 36-23 and had the lead, actually, even being down by 14. We had the lead 59-57 going into the break, and then 36-27 we won the third. Fourth quarter, 26-19, won that. So 121-104 is the final. An efficient night for Kawhi Leonard in 34 minutes of play. Only turned the ball over twice and was a plus 24. He truly is playing like one of the best players in the world right now. And we've never had a player like this, man. So when he's on the court, I really appreciate it. And it looks like my knocking on wood is still working pretty well. Because if you had told me we'd have Kawhi for 28 out of the first 32 games, and that included that he was injured already, I'm taking that and sprinting with it. I ain't running with it. I'm sprinting with it. Kawhi Leonard. Coming up, going to talk more about the second half, what changed. Let's get in more depth about this game, the first of 2024, and maybe this is the year where the Clippers, okay, I got to be stopped. I got to be talking more coming up. I got to tell you a little something about our good friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best daily fantasy sports platform in North America, and it's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings come in. With basketball season and football season going on simultaneously, you can select players across sports in the Specials League, a league that was made specifically for combo projections that include 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, you could take Kawhi Leonard more with 3-pointers made, and then Puka Nacua for touchdown passes. My Rams made the playoffs, by the way. Just wanted to say that. Want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. All you got to do is go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Clippers win at 121-104 at home to go 14-4. On the season at home. Kawhi Leonard is back and kicking. And that reverse dunk, as I said earlier, that got me out of I was already out of my seat, but just so hyped. So hyped. Let's talk a little bit about the Heat's zone. So the Heat, they play more zone than any team in the NBA. They were in like a 1-3-1. They were in a matchup zone where they would start out in a zone and then they'd go to a man. But for the most part, 2-3 zone, right? The way you break zones is you have to have a middleman and you got to move the ball quickly and have proper spacing. The thing that a lot of NBA teams don't use nowadays and why it's so much harder it seems to break zone, even though there are more shooters on the court than ever before, this is something that does not get talked about enough in basketball these days. But you know what? This is not my platform. This is Locked On Clippers, so I'm not going to get too far into it. But let me put you, because I actually get visibly upset when we have this conversation. But let me just say, because I don't think a zone is hard to break. The middleman, though, is what a lot of teams don't utilize. And it's a big reason is because dudes aren't that comfortable now, because it's not what they practice, catching the ball at the foul line, turning, and potentially shooting. They practice catch and shoot threes so much. Catch and shoot mid-ranges are not encouraged by analytics. And if we're being real with the spacing of NBA defenses, especially today, and where you start out offensive possessions, you don't get many opportunities to shoot, catch, and shoot mid-ranges unless they're like on an offensive rebound and the ball comes back to you or something. So that shot is a little awkward for some people. especially if you want to put a big there, because you typically want to put a big in the high post so that they can see over the top of the defense and make a read, right? Bam Adebayo ideally is the perfect guy to put in a situation like this. Or, well, the best in the league is Jokic and Embiid. Embiid has that, he can catch the foul line, no problems. Pau Gasol was fantastic at this. Even, see, like back in the day, like I'm even going 10 years back, Dirk Nowitzki, Elton Brand, like these type of guys would have been, these are bread and butter for them. Even Blake Griffin, we didn't have teams play zone like that against us, but Blake Griffin, when he caught the ball in short roll situations or the high post, his lobs to DJ were like unstoppable. Because Chris Paul always was attracting two defenders, and Blake and DJ, the amount of high-low actions and big-to-big passing that we were able to enjoy for all those years was stellar. So what I thought the Clippers did a decent job of was they put Zoo in the high post at times, and even when he didn't get the ball, this is the beauty of the high post. I always tell kids this when I coach them. The high post is the hardest thing to sell kids on because they often don't even touch the ball. Because if a guy catches the ball at the foul line in the middle of your defense, you are screwed because your zone collapses. And then you have to crowd him, which will allow them to make a pass and get an open shot. So good teams will prevent them from getting the ball in the high post. But them just taking that away opens up the wings and potential corners. And the Clippers were doing a good job of swinging the ball and finding corner shooters. And Norman Powell and Amir Coffey made some big threes in that second quarter when we were down by 14. They cut it down to 7. And then Kawhi had his takeover with 12 points in the second quarter. He was getting into his mid-range. I thought we did a great job of 13 points, in the second. We looked for him. He was knocking down shots. I give James Harden a lot of credit because it felt like he was making entry passes a lot. And we had a lot less Harden double drag and pick and rolls in this game because we have Kawhi. And that's the ultimate, test for me with James Harden. I don't think he did anything really wrong in Brooklyn when it came to this particular topic, but it's all about knowing what is needed in a particular moment. When you have options like we have, where you could always get something good out of James Harden pick and roll. You can frequently get something good out of Paul George catching the ball at the elbow, or even Paul George pick and roll. Or Kawhi, you have options. It's a matter of what's the best option to go to given the time of the game, the circumstance, and what the defense is throwing at you. And I thought that it was very obvious with Kawhi having 0 points in the first quarter and us down by a lot that we looked to get him going. And we took that momentum into the second half. And let me just say, Norman Powell, he basically kept us afloat in that first half. He was just making shots, attacking closeouts, getting to the basket, knocking down open threes. It's amazing that we even had trade conversation about Norman Powell at any point. He is a perfect guy to have around these kind of stars. Catch and shoot, attack closeouts, come off the bench, and just get buckets. And he's very efficient, and he gets to the line. I mean, what more do you want? What more do you want from that guy? Oh, he's not a great defender. I mean, he can't just be great at everything. That's why he's not a $30 million player. I also wanted to say, before the zone from the Heat, they were switching a lot, right? I mean, Bam was in drop a little bit, but they're very comfortable switching Bam, especially when Russ came in. They were switching Bam on a Russ, Jaquez on a Russ, Love on a Russ. And I will say, Russ was falling into the trap, besides the one time where he took Jaquez to the house, of taking a lot of shots in isolation and not really getting the ball moving. And that ended up being a little costly, and I think definitely contributed to the Heat going up. And then Paul George, he actually had a very aggressive start to the game. He had 8 points in the first quarter, and I like that we, looked to get him going, and he caught the ball in the elbow a lot more, was being aggressive, getting to the basket. When Paul George catches the ball closer to the basket, he becomes better. It's not rocket science. I don't know why he makes the game so hard for himself, but that's something we're probably going to be asking years and years from now as well, even after he retires. Man, Paul George, man, he had all the talent in the world, but he made the game too complicated for himself at times. But in this game, he played the whole first quarter. He had 8 points, and he had 4 free throw attempts in the first and 4 field goal attempts. So that's exactly what you like to see from PG. And then in the third quarter, I thought he was a big reason why we kind of lit him up. And I've been looking for a better Paul George game defensively, and I hate that it came when Kawhi Leonard came back. We need you to be great defensively, even better when he's out. You can make the argument, well, he gets to conserve on offense more, which is valid, but man, come on. Like, Paul George is better than me having to say that. Like, you need two other stars in the starting lineup with you for you to play good defense. Like, come on. You're a good two-way player. And there was one possession that, represented that perfectly where he pickpocketed Tyler Herro, and then he just shot a jumper in Jaime Jaquez's face. He was just really, really good. And in the third quarter, he had 2 3-pointers and 12 points overall. 4 for 6 from the field in the quarter, 2 for 4 from 3. In the game, Paul George finished with 23 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal, so fairly quiet in other categories. He did turn the ball over 3 times, and that led our team. So you definitely want to see him take better care of the ball. Some decisions were just bad. I remember there was one where he passed it to Terrence, and he thought he would be in the deeper corner. And look, it was a bad pass, but I had a good angle of it because I was right behind the play. Terrence should have slid to the further in the right because the way the defender was helping off of Terrence, he would have been able to recover if Terrence got the ball. PG wants to be in a situation where he can pass the ball, and Terrence Mann can shoot right away. So I thought that wasn't actually fully on Paul George, but then again, I didn't get the replay. But regardless, 23 points on 50% shooting, 7 for 14, 3 for 8 from deep, 6 for 6 from the line. It's a great night when Paul George is getting to the foul line. So yeah. And our defense in the second half, I mean, we were switching a lot. I thought Amir Coffey did a phenomenal job fighting over screens against Duncan Robinson. He took him out of the game. He was chasing, trailing so well. Terrence Mann, I thought his defense was really solid in this game. And we got another game with Terrence in double figures, which is amazing. He made his first 3 of the game. 18 minutes played for him. 12 points, 3 rebounds, 5 for 7 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3, and he got an and 1, made the free throw. Very efficient game from Terrence all across the board, and he played good D, and he did it in just 18 minutes. I really hope that can unlock things a bit for him. 2 straight games of him in double figures, so that's a good thing. That hopefully that can get him in the positive direction. But coming up, going to talk more about our defense and some of the other guys that got run, especially Russell Westbrook in the second half. Going to be talking about it coming up. I got to tell you a little something about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. Remember, I've been telling people, please bet Clippers to win the championship. Our odds are only going to get better, so you want to strike when they're a little bit on the lower side, and now with the way we're playing, they may not be on the lower side. The app is so easy to use, and there's so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays, find bets in the new Explore tab, make a parlay in the Parlay Hub. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, Clippers winning it 121-104, a high-scoring game, and you wouldn't have been able to get that kind of high-scoring game without James Harden, who was very solid when he was called upon. Made some good plays in pick and roll. His 3-ball was falling in this one, 3 for 5 from deep, making some great passes. He had a little injury scare. He found Ivica Zubac on a lob in that second quarter, and he landed awkwardly. It looked like he sprained his ankle or something, and he slapped the scores table. But he ended up being okay. We'll see if that leads to him missing any games or anything. He's been perfect so far as a Clipper in terms of this season playing games. But his playmaking was very good, and he was just solid tonight. Not much over dribbling, his defense was solid off the ball. He didn't get lost, had a couple of nice strips. People are making a lot of jokes about, James Harden and stripping guys because of the strip club and all that. He had 2 blocks and a steal in this one, just 2 turnovers to 10 assists. So a 5-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. Also chipped in with 4 rebounds, 15, 4, and 10 with a steal and 2 blocks. I'll take that all day, especially on 5 for 8 shooting and 3 for 5 from 3. Just 2 free throw attempts, 2 for Harden, made him both. Probably should have gotten 4. And he played 31 minutes. So I thought he was really solid in what we needed from him. And the Clippers, we were actually switching 1 through 5 with Tice in the beginning of that third quarter, and it wasn't very good. The only time where I'd say Harden struggled defensively is when he had to guard Bam Adebayo twice, and there was one time where he guarded Jaquez, and they scored on him down low and had a nice seal. But overall, I thought Harden was decent defensively. Let's talk about Russell Westbrook and the way he ended the third quarter and started the fourth. I mean, he took over basically. He had an amazing defensive possession on Bam Adebayo that led to a shot clock violation. He was getting to the basket on everyone. A couple of times he did not get calls, both halves. Ridiculous. He got whacked at the rim and he got nothing. But he still did not let that deter him. He kept going to the basket, had some nice passes, great rebounds. Just, he had that offensive rebound and bucket. So, and by the way, James Harden had a beautiful bounce pass to Zubats, and I had a great look of it. I didn't think it was going to go through. He put some extra spin and whip on that thing. But Russ, just loved it. I loved our point of attack defense as the game went on after the first quarter, and I liked our off-ball defense. We were anticipating passes. We were ready for entry passes by fronting the post and making them throw it over the top. And guys like Russ, guys like Kawhi, Paul George, their length, their athleticism, it's tough to throw it over the top. I love when Russ fronts the post because they all try to throw it over the top and he just hits that trampoline. I mean, Westbrook, he was so great energy-wise, getting 2 feet in the paint and just being everywhere. The way he can get his fingerprints on everything in such a short amount of time is so impressive. I remember when he was on OKC when I was young, I used to tell people, I feel like there's 2 of this guy on the court. That's the only person I've ever said that about in my life. Any era of basketball I've watched is the only person I've ever said, it feels like there's 2 of that guy on the court. Russell Westbrook, whatever criticism you might have of him in the first half, second half he made up for it. 8 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, 2 turnovers for him, so same as Harden. But he did play less. 18 minutes, he shot 40% from the field, 4 for 10, 0 for 1 from 3, no free throw attempts, which is ludicrous, but at least he didn't shoot many threes, even though he's shooting a little bit better lately. Didn't share the floor much with Harden, but I thought he was just fantastic in that second half. That stat line just does not show the impact. Another thing, I always beat a dead horse with this, but it is so fun being at games with Russ. Like, he's constantly motioning to the crowd. Like, he's a showman. He's an entertainer. You gotta love him. He's built for it. And this side of the hallway seems like it's just more of Russ's cup of tea. Anyway, Daniel Tice, how about his performance? Some solid shots breaking the zone. The Miami Heat were in that zone like all game. I thought he had a couple of nice shots in that high post area where he floated it up and in. 6 points and a rebound for Tice on 2 for 3 shooting in 16 minutes. The only shot he missed was a 3. He hit 2 free throws as well. Amir Coffey played 19 minutes. He had 5 points, a rebound, and 2 assists on 2 for 3 shooting and 1 for 2 from 3 in 19 minutes. And let me tell you, that just doesn't do him justice at all because I thought his defense on Robinson and just in the point of attack was really, really solid. How about this efficiency from Norm? 22 points on 9 for 11 shooting and 4 for 5 from 3. That's ridiculous. He only missed 2 shots, and he was 4 for 5 from 3. Shocking game where Norm doesn't get a free throw. That's wild. 2 rebounds, 2 assists, and how about 2 steals to go along with it? When was the last time we said Norman Powell was a defensive liability? Haven't said that in weeks, maybe months. And 33 minutes, by the way. And then last, but certainly not least, he's been playing at such a high level, protecting the paint, doing a good job one-on-one against the likes of Jokic, the likes of Bam Adebayo. Hand up, discipline. And also, I want to give a shout out to James Harden. Sometimes he had some really solid closeouts where he was staying disciplined and not jumping. As I said, Harden's defensive fundamentals are actually pretty good. He's just not very good laterally, doesn't like sitting down in a chair, and he doesn't always love playing defense. But for the Clippers so far, he's been good enough. If he can continue to do that in the playoffs, when he's good, I think he'll be fine. It's just that, in the playoffs when there are just few below average defenders on the court, that's when it can stick out a little bit more. But we have so much to go before that, and he's surrounded by this is James Harden and Russell Westbrook's best chance to win a ring, in my opinion. Like, James Harden in Brooklyn, he never even had this kind of, continuity with the big three over there. He's already got, 20-plus games under his belt with these guys. It's a bit different than that. I think it's a better chance for him. Of course, there was Houston. He was pretty close then. But it's just much more realistic when he's not the best player. I'm sorry. And then in Westbrook's case, he hasn't really had a great chance of winning a ring since 2016. When he was by himself or as the best player, I'm sorry, same goes for Russ. Sorry, guys. He wasn't winning a ring. And then, let's see. With Harden, that team wasn't going to win a ring when they traded all their centers. That was ridiculous. And then with the Lakers, you could say that was a good chance, but that fit was made from the dungeons of hell. Anyway, Clippers win it 121-104. I'll take that all day. The shooting split's just fantastic for the team. 59, 48, 93. 17 out of 22, ladies and gentlemen. And we got the Phoenix Suns next, who are finally fully healthy, but KD got load managed on Monday. They've won 2 games in a row, or I think it might be 3 games in a row. But one of those was against Portland, and another one was against Charlotte. So, I don't know. I'm not that moved. We'll be previewing that game on the Wednesday episode. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. Subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for a video of the Miami Heat game and my experience, fans' thoughts, and everything will be out on Tuesday on my channel. And of course, Locked On Clippers is free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. We are now in 19th place for NBA teams, but we really need to push the subscribers even further if we want to catch teams, because I don't think there's any other channel, NBA channel, that's under 5K that's above us. So we need to get to 5K. The Clippers win it. The age-old proverb continues. Go Clippers, and have a great second day of 2024.